Hey everyone, it's Adam Small in the beautiful Denver, Colorado area. It's a cold and blizzardy night here. It's December 3rd, 2025, and I figured I'd make a YouTube video on custom filter tuning through Rotorflight for all you guys using Rotorflight. Anyways, filtering is super important. The Rotorflight contributors say you want to tune the filters before tuning your profiles, like your P, I, D, O, B gains, stuff like that. You don't want a filter that's too strong because that slows down the control loop. All the information has to go through the filters first, and then it goes into the control loop. And that may slow it down if you have too many filters or filters that are too strong. And then on the other end, if you have not enough filters, then you may get vibrations going into the control loop, which may cause unwanted flight characteristics like a tail wag or a main rotor oscillation, something like that. So my philosophy with filter tuning is I want to set the minimum amount of filtering so I get the fastest control loop. That way I can really crank up my gains and I have crispy performance on my helicopters. Right now, I am on the most recent stable versions for the Rotorflight configurator, which I'm on right now. And then the firmware on my Rotorflight unit, I'm using a Vantac RF007 twin version. I'm on 4.5.1. So I'm on the most recent stable versions with those. And then if you haven't done so, it's not required to download Blackbox, but to use or to exercise filter tuning, which I'm going to talk about in this video, you want to go to rotorflight.org and make sure, right now I'm on 2.2.0, and then click download, and then Blackbox. You want to download the Blackbox desktop app. And I'll show you quickly what that looks like. And it's right here. Here's the Rotorflight Blackbox app. That's what we're going to use to look at the logs and look at the vibration analyzer a little bit later. Okay, so I'm back in the Rotorflight configurator here. First of all, I'll just show you quickly what equipment I'm using. I have a Tron Dynamic here with the Vantac RF007. It's all plugged into the computer and it's connected to the Rotorflight configurator. I did a filter tuning flight yesterday. It was actually a real nice day, and now it's crappy and blizzard. So I did log one flight yesterday, just a quick filter tuning flight. And we're going to use that Blackbox data to set up custom filtering. First of all, we need to do a few things before you go out and do a filter tuning flight. We have to make sure Blackbox login's enabled and a couple other things. So right now I'm in the Rotorflight configurator. First thing I'm going to go to is motors. And you want to make sure you have the correct, the main gear pinion and the main gear tooth count. You want to make sure these are exact. Otherwise, the filter tuning isn't going to be accurate and not work. You also want to make sure you have the correct tail rotor gear ratio. And unfortunately, sometimes the tail pulley tooth count isn't in the manuals, or the tail main gear isn't in the manual, so sometimes you have to count them. And then, of course, I'm on 10 main motor pull count. Anyways, make sure these gear ratios are correct so you can filter tune. Next, we are going to go to Gyro. Like I said earlier, I'm going to show you how to do custom filter tuning, but you could also just use the default filter tuning and you'd probably have really good results. I just want that extra bit of performance, so I do custom filter tuning. So right now I'm in the Gyro menu, and then you want to enable the low pass filter, select first order, and I select a cutoff frequency of 150. The low pass filter, basically what it does is it filters high frequency vibrations, but it doesn't filter out low frequency vibrations. Because you don't want to filter out the motion of the helicopter, basically. That's what the low pass filter does. Next, notch filter. I disabled both notch filters 1 and 2. Basically, the notch filter is when we look at the vibration analyzer in a little bit, if you see some vibration peaks occurring at a frequency that isn't associated with any of the rotating bits of the helicopter, like the motor or the main rotor or the tail rotor, it's kind of an anomaly. Maybe you have a vibrating canopy. If you have a vibration peak not associated with the rotating parts of the helicopter, you can enable a notch filter. And then you want to look at the hertz for the peak, the very peak of that vibration spike, and enter the hertz here. And then you want to look at the left side of the peak where the vibration is starting and enter the lowest side frequency here. Right now, I'm anticipating I don't have any anomalies, vibration peaks due to the non-rotating parts of the helicopter. Dynamic filter. To do a filter tuning flight, you want to make sure this is disabled. From what I've heard is if you enable it, it may mask some frequencies that you need to filter out. All my helicopters, I don't have dynamic filter enabled. It's all disabled on all my helicopters, including my nitro. Back to low pass filter. I entered a figure of a number of 150. That's a good ballpark figure. I use it on all my models from a RAW 500 all the way to an OMP M7, and I'm getting good results. But it is recommended for larger helicopters to use a number between 80 and 150. And then for smaller helicopters, use a figure of 150 to 250. So the 150 is a good ballpark. The most important part here is the RPM filter on the right here. You want to make sure it's enabled. And then for the filter tuning flight, I like to select medium. This is a default setting. Later, we're going to go into custom because I like to do custom filtering. But for the filter tuning flight, I like to select medium. And then for the minimum frequency hertz, basically, I look at the lowest RPM I fly at with my model. So this Tron Dynamic, the lowest RPM I fly with is 1600 RPM. And if you divide 1600 by 60, that gives you how many hertz, which is 26. And then I like to take 10% off of that. So times 0.9. So that's about 24 hertz. So that's why I entered 24 here. All right, now we're gonna go back to the tab on the left side of your Rotorflight configurator. Profiles, they say before filter tuning, you just wanna use the stock gains here. You can see my gains are quite high from stock because I've already kind of done custom filter tuning. But it is recommended to use the default gains. All right, next we're gonna go to modes, and this is where I assign Blackbox login to a 3-position switch on my transmitter. So the first position of the 3-position switch is Blackbox logging off, and then the middle position would be Blackbox logging on, and then the third position would be Blackbox logging erase. So that's how I have my Blackbox login configured. I'm gonna put a CLI, which comes straight from the rotorflight.org website. I'll put that in the show description if you want to copy and paste that into your CLI. All right, next we're gonna go down to Blackbox tab. Here's the Blackbox tab. There's a few things I change on here. My login device, the Vantac RF007, has onboard flash. I like to use a switch, that 3-position switch, to control my logging. The default for login rate is a 500, so you want to change that to 1,000, so you can see a wide spectrum when we look at the logs. Debug mode, I like to select that to governor. And then debug axis, that's default. Initial erase, that's default. Rolling erase, you can have that on or off. And then over here, you can select the tabs I have here. Basically, just select the tabs you want to log in Blackbox. Now that you have your Rotorflight flybarless unit configured and ready for a filter tuning flight, you can take your model out to the field. And what I like to do is take off into a hover in my most common bank, or the bank I use the most. On my Tron Dynamic, that is our example tonight. I like to fly 1900 RPM. That's my most common bank or profile. So I take off and I go into profile 2, which is 1900 RPM. And then I'll do some left pyros and some right pyros with the rudder. And then I make sure there's hard stops at the end. And then I like to do some pitch pumps, but I'm not going full stick. You know, kind of aggressive pitch pumps. And then I like to do elevator jabs, forward elevator and then right elevator, and then same with roll. So I'll do right roll jab, left roll jab. If you're more advanced, you can do half stick elevator flips, so forward flip and then a back flip, but not full stick, about half stick. And then I do the same on roll, so a left complete roll and then a right complete roll. And then I'll turn my Blackbox logging back off, land the airplane, and then you can take your model to the bench, connect it to your laptop, and then we're gonna analyze the vibration spikes in the vibration analyzer. Okay, now that you've done your filter tuning flight, you enabled Blackbox when you took off, and then you did your maneuvers, and then you turn your Blackbox logging off. Once you plug in your helicopter back at the bench after the filter tuning flight, you're gonna go to the Blackbox tab down here. And what I like to do is activate mass storage device. And then we're gonna open up Rotorflight D drive, open folder to view files up here. So these are my logs here. So yesterday was December 2nd. So all I'm gonna do is copy this file here from yesterday, and then I'm gonna paste it on my desktop. So here it is right here, dynamic. I'm not sure what the full file name is. So now I'm gonna double click on that file I just copied and pasted to my desktop. And this is gonna open up the Rotorflight Blackbox app, which you should have downloaded earlier. To start analyzing the data from your filter tuning flight, you wanna go to Legend. And for graph setup, you want to add a graph for gyros, roll, pitch, and yaw. And then graph 2, select gyros pre-filter and roll, pitch, and yaw. And then graph 3, I just use rotor speeds. It's not quite necessary, but I do it. Now you can see here on the right side of the Blackbox configurator, I have gyros, roll, pitch, and yaw, and then gyros pre-filter, roll, pitch, and yaw. And here's my rotor speeds down here. So here's pre-filter, and here's, I guess, the post-filter. So this is the filtered gyros, this is unfiltered. I want to look at the unfiltered gyros and see what noise I'm looking at. All right, so the first thing I'm going to look at here is I'm going to click on the unfiltered gyro bar, and you can see down here in the lower left, a graph came up with some spikes. I'm going to maximize this. This is our vibration analyzer. I'm not sure the exact name, but it's showing from 0 to 500 hertz, but we can actually see all the way to 1,000 hertz if I were to scroll more to the right. Now, if you took off and enabled Blackbox logging, once you're in a hover, these are good. But if you didn't do that, like you have Blackbox logging off your arm switch, I'll show you an easy way to just, so let's say you're on the ground here. I'm just using the right arrow on my keypad. Let's say you're on the ground here, and then once you take off, push I. That'll reset the graph to when you're airborne. And then you want to go all the way to the end of your flight. Okay, here's the end of the flight here. And then push O. So basically, you just want to look at the vibrations when you're in the air, not on the ground, because that causes all kinds of issues. All right, let's click back on the vibration analyzer. Let's maximize that window. The first thing I want to look at is roll. And you can see here, I have a lot of spikes. I don't pay attention to the spikes over here on the very left side. I'm looking at these guys here. You can see there's a bunch. So this is the unfiltered, pre-filtered roll. Now, if you hit the shift key on your keypad and then use your mouse, I want to go to this first peak here where the mouse pointer is. And basically it says that's about 30.9 or 30.5 hertz. And next to it, it says 1832 RPM. So that's the fundamental frequency of the main rotor. So that's a pretty big peak. So I definitely want to make sure that is filtered out. Okay. And now I'm going to go back to the Rotorflight configurator. And since we were in that mass storage mode, we want to eject the drives. And then I just unplug the USB port from my computer, plug the USB cord back into the computer. And now I'm reconnected in the Rotorflight configurator. You can see I'm connected up here. And then I'm going to click on Gyro. Okay. Now on the RPM filter, I want to set custom. And it starts with roll. You can see I'm on roll here. This is where we're going to do our custom filter tuning. Right now I have main motor notch Q off or disabled, and we'll talk about that a little later. So we saw that big peak on the fundamental frequency of 30.5 hertz, which is about 1900 RPM. So I set a single. Single is a weaker filter, and then double is a stronger filter, and triple is even a stronger filter. And just remember, the stronger the filters, then the more delay you may have in your model. So that fundamental frequency notch Q, you want to set it probably from 2 to 10. The higher the number means the smaller the filter. The lower the number means the stronger the filter is going to be. So I try to have the highest numbers with the least amount of filtering. So on that one, I set 8. Let's look at the second harmonic, which is this guy here. So we're looking at we just did the fundamental. So I set a notch Q of 8. On this guy, on the second harmonics, it seems that that's where we get the strongest vibration on the models. So I do want to filter this guy out here. So I'm going to go back to Rotorflight configurator, and on the second harmonic, I did a single and I selected 3. I'm actually going to set 2 because the second harmonic is pretty strong. All right, third harmonic. That's enabled right now. Let's see if we have any spikes on the third harmonic. We have a little guy right here. So that's the third harmonic. You can see this bar here. It's quite small, but I do want to filter it out. So I'm going to go back to the Rotorflight configurator, and on the third harmonic, I'm just going to select 10. That's about as small of a filter as I go. All right, let's look at the fourth harmonic. Let's go back to the Blackbox. So here's the third, and then here's the fourth right here. So I don't know, maybe I'm going to set maybe an 8 or 9 back in the Rotorflight configurator because it's not that big. So let's do an 8. All right, then I'm going to save and reboot. All right, I'm going to go back to Gyro. So it saved everything I did for the main rotor here. Now it's time to move on to the tail rotor. So basically, you want to find out what your tail rotor RPM is, and I'll show you quickly how it's easy. So here's the first, second, third, fourth harmonic. I can tell you right now, this is the tail. So I'm going to hit the shift key, and you can see these sliders move. I'm going to put it right on the peak, and I can see at the top here, that's 159 hertz or about 9,500 RPM. So that's the tail. That's the fundamental RPM of the tail. So it's a pretty, it's a pretty good peak right there. So I'm guessing maybe, I'm guessing probably a 3 or 4 as far as your notch Q. So right now I have it on a single, and I'm going to select 3.0. Next, second harmonic notch type. So let's go back to the Blackbox. So here's the fundamental of the tail, and way over here, that's the second harmonic of the tail. And it's very small, so I'm probably going to put a 10 notch Q on that guy right there. And you can see the third fundamental, there's nothing. So I'm going to turn that off, and I can tell you if I scroll over to the right, the fourth fundamental is also going to be, it's going to have no vibration peak. So I'm going to disable the third and fourth fundamentals on the tail. So I'm going to go back to Rotorflight configurator. And what did I say? I wanted the second harmonic. It was kind of small, so I'm going to set a 10. And then I disabled the third and the fourth harmonic on the tail because you saw in the vibration analyzer there's no peaks there. All right, lastly, I'm going to go to the main motor. So now we're going to look to see if your main motor is creating any noise. And from what I've seen, all my electric models, I have my main motor RPM filter disabled or off. The only model that I have a little bit of filter for the main motor, as far as electric models, is the RAW 500. But if you have a nitro helicopter, you definitely want to make sure this main motor notch Q is enabled, and you probably want to set a value of 2. But let's see if I have any noise from the main motor RPM on my Tron Dynamic. Here. So my motor at 1900 RPM is spinning at about 20,000 RPM. You can see there's not much of a peak there. So I just disabled the main motor notch Q. All right, so I'm going to save and reboot that. All right, go back to gyros on the tab on the left. Okay, so basically we just did the motor, the main rotor, and tail rotor custom filtering, but only for the roll axis. Now we want to look at the pitch axis. So select pitch. I'm going to look at the main rotor first. Now let's go back to the Blackbox app. And I'm going to select pitch. Earlier we selected roll. We clicked on roll. Now we're going to click on pitch. And you can see the graph kind of changed. You can see the fundamental. So I'm going to hit shift. I'm looking at the main rotor. There's about 1900 RPM. You can see it at the top. Right up there. Very little frequency from the fundamental on the pitch axis. So I'm going to go back to the configurator. And I selected single. And then since it's such a small vibration, I'm just going to select 10 there. Second harmonic. Second harmonic's always strong, like I mentioned before. So let's go back. Yep, you can see it's quite strong. This is the second harmonic here, or second fundamental. Go back to the configurator. I'm going to do a single, and it's not super strong compared to the roll axis. So I'm happy with 3 there. All right, let's look at the third and the fourth harmonic on the main rotor. Go back to the Blackbox app. Here we go. Okay, this little peak down there, that's the third harmonic. I'm going to disable that. That's not high enough to really concern me. So I'm going to disable the third harmonic. And you can see the fourth harmonic here is a little bit bigger. So I'm going to put a notch Q of 10 on that one. So third harmonic, I'm going to disable. And the fourth harmonic, I'm going to select 10. All right. Now let's look at the tail rotor. I'm still on the pitch axis here, so I clicked on that. Then I go to the tail rotor. Let's look at the fundamental and the second harmonic. So here's the fourth harmonic, the main rotor. I know right here, that's the tail. This is the fundamental frequency of the tail rotor, which is about 160 hertz, 9,600 RPM. So I'm going to have a very small filter on that guy. But the second harmonic, you can see there's nothing. So I'm going to disable that. All right, so the tail rotor, what did I say? It's very small. Vibration spike there. So I'm going to just put 10. And then I'm going to disable the second. So the fundamental, I'm going to change this number to 10. And then the second harmonic, I'm going to disable it. All right. And then I can tell you the third and fourth harmonic, there's nothing there. They're way over here. There's no spikes. Let's look at the main motor notch, see if there's any noise from the main motor. Make sure I'm on pitch here. My main motor spins at about 300, what did I say, 20,000 RPM. So that's right here. I use the shift key, move this slider to your main motor hertz. And you can see there's nothing there. So I disabled my main motor notch Q. All right, I'm gonna save and reboot. Okay, after the save and reboot, I'm gonna click on gyro. So we did the roll first, we just did the pitch, and now I'm gonna click on yaw, and we're gonna analyze vibrations on the yaw axis. So let's start with the main rotor. Let's go back to the Blackbox app, and I'm going to go to pre-filtered gyros, and I'm going to click on yaw. You can see the graph kind of changed off to our left, and I'm going to look at my main rotor fundamental. So I'm using the shift key and the mouse, and that's about 1900 RPM. Very small spike, some tall grass they call it. So I'm going to put a very small filter on the fundamental. You can see the default here is single and an 8. I'm going to put 10. The second harmonics are always stronger. So let's take a look at the second harmonic, which is right here. It's not as strong as the roll and pitch axis, so I'm guessing probably 6. So I'm going to change the default 4 to 6. Let's look at the third and fourth harmonic on the main rotor. Let's go back to Blackbox app. Boy, the third is right here. Very small. I'm going to disable the third, and the fourth is a little bigger. So I'm going to enable the fourth and maybe put a Q of 10. So I'm going to disable the third, and then on the fourth harmonic, I'm going to put a notch Q of 10. Just remember, the least amount of filtering, the better your helicopter is going to perform. For me, it's satisfying if I turn notch filters off that I don't need, because it's just slowing down the control loop. All right, let's look at the tail rotor for the yaw axis. Let me make sure I'm still on yaw. I clicked on it. Down here on tail rotor. Let's look at the fundamental and the second harmonic for the tail rotor. So let's go back to Blackbox app. Here's my tail rotor frequency here, about 160 hertz. And it's not that big. I definitely want a filter on the fundamental, but the second, that's so small I don't care about. So I'm going to disable the second on the tail, and then the third and fourth on the tail. So the fundamental for the tail, I'm going to guess probably an 8. So I'm going to go back to the Rotorflight configurator. The fundamental, I said 8. And then the second harmonic was pretty small, if I remember. Yeah, here's the second. So I'm going to turn the second harmonic on the tail rotor off. All right, so we did the tail rotor. Now let's look at the main motor, which is about 333 hertz. So here's a little bit of noise from the main motor, but it's so small, I feel I don't need to enable the main motor notch Q, so I disabled it. And then save and reboot it. And then so we just did our custom filter tuning initially, and now you can take your model back out and do another filter tuning flight. So take off in a hover, just like you did before, enable your Blackbox logging, and do your series of maneuvers that I discussed before, just simple maneuvers, short flight, and then turn your Blackbox logging off, land, and then go back to the bench, reconnect your helicopter to the Rotorflight configurator, and then we'll see how your custom filtering did. And that's coming up next. All right, everyone, I'm back from my second logging flight. I have my helicopter back on the bench. Flight pack is disconnected and off, and my helicopter is connected to my computer, and I got the Rotorflight configurator open, and we're connected up here, as you can see. So now we want to go to Blackbox, and we want to pull the log from that flight I just did. All right, and we're going to activate mass storage device. We're going to open up the D drive, open folder to view, and then find your file, the most recent file you just logged, and then I copy it and paste it. to my desktop. So here's the file from my most recent login flight. So I'm going to double click on that. This will open up the Blackbox. And here's my flight right here. Just remember, you only want to look at when the vibrations when the airplane or the helicopter is airborne. So you could use the I key right here if you wanted, and that's when you'd start the vibration analyzer. Okay, so earlier we were looking at the pre-filtered gyros on roll, pitch, and yaw. Now, after the second flight, I'm curious to see how our custom filter tuning did. So now I'm going to be looking at our filtered gyros. So we're going to start with roll. So I'm going to click on gyro roll. That opens up the vibration analyzer down here. I'm going to maximize it. Okay, so here is our filtered gyro roll. And just a comparison, here's unfiltered gyro roll. That's ugly. That's much better. So let's take a look here. So I'm using the shift key in the mouse. That's about 1900 RPM right there. You can see here's the fundamental. Here's the second, third, and fourth. I'm pretty okay with this stuff here. There is a little peak here. So I want to increase the filtering on the fundamental of the main rotor. I'm back on Rotorflight configurator. I need to eject the drive because we're in mass storage mode. Unplug the USB cord and then plug it back in. Now we're connected. Go to gyro. I'm on roll because we're looking at roll first. Fundamental. I wanted to increase the filtering, so I'm going to go from 8 to 6. The second looked good, the third looked good, and the fourth looked good of the main rotor. Tail rotor, let's take a look at that. So here's the first, second, third, fourth. Tail rotor is right around here. And it's actually super flat here, so I'm wondering maybe if I over filtered it. Let's just take a look. Oh, tail rotor, fundamental. I had a value of 3 in there, so maybe that's over filtered. So I'm going to increase the Q on that from 3 to a 5. Let's look at the second. So here's the fundamental of the tail. Here's the second harmonic of the tail. There's nothing there. And I have a value of 10 there. Our initial login flight, I did see a spike there, so I'm just going to leave this on single and 10. Let's save and reboot. Go back to gyro. Go back to Blackbox, and now let's look at the main motor. There's a little spike here, right here. It's not huge. I don't know, I could go either way on this. Just for kicks, I'm going to enable the main motor notch Q on that and put a value of 10 on it. So let's enable main motor notch Q, and I'm going to put 10. So that's all right. So we just tweaked our filters even more, so hopefully our helicopter performs even better. That's why we're doing this. Okay, so we just did a roll, and now we're going to repeat the process with pitch. So I'm going to click on pitch. Go back to the Blackbox. So here's filtered pitch. Here's pre-filtered pitch. So that's ugly. Filter pitch, much better looking. Let's take a look here at the main rotor, fundamental, second, third, and fourth harmonic. So yeah, there's some noise here. So there's nothing on the fundamental here. Second, I'm going to increase the filtering on that. Third's okay. Fourth's okay. And the tail is about 160. That's pretty flat. I may even decrease the filtering on the fundamental. And then for the tail, then the second harmonic on the tail, nothing. And then the main motor is right around here. There's nothing. And we don't even have the main motor enabled on that. All right, so let me go back to the configurator. And we wanted to increase the second harmonic for the main rotor. So maybe we can get rid of this noise here. So I'm going to go from a single, or second harmonic, I'm going from a 3 to a 2. Remember, it's not recommended to go below 2. The third, I have off, and the fourth is 10. Tail rotor fundamental, I have it on the least amount of filtering, a value of 10. And the main motor doesn't need, I didn't see any noise on the main motor, so I'm going to leave that disabled like we did earlier. All right, save and reboot. Okay, now we're going to look at yaw. Click on yaw. Go back to the black box. Now let's click on gyro yaw. Much cleaner. So this is filtered yaw. Here's unfiltered yaw. Much cleaner, but we'll clean it up a little more. Okay, so let's look at the main rotor first. Right about there, looks like the fundamental looks good. Second, I have some noise here, so I'll increase the filtering on that. Third looks good. Fourth looks good. So on the main rotor, the fundamental looked good, but we want to get rid of a little more noise on the second harmonic. So I'm going to go from 6 to a 4. Third was disabled, fourth was fine. Okay, I'm going to hit enter, save and reboot. Go back to gyro. Go back to black box. Let's look at the tail. Mine's about 160 hertz. Oh, it's really flat on the fundamental of the tail. And the second, there's nothing. So maybe my filtering's too strong on the fundamental of the tail. All right, tail rotor. It was pretty flat, so I'm going to put a value of 10 on that. And enter, save and reboot. Let's go to black box. We'll look at the motor. That's about 333 hertz. Nothing there. Okay, so that covers custom filter tuning on Rotorflight systems using Blackbox app. If you wanted to, you could go do another logging flight and see how these tweaks we just did, and then you could tweak it even more. I probably will. I'll do a third flight, and then I'm pretty much done because I want to fly. I want to practice. But I found these models work good, and I've helped my friends do some custom filter tuning, and their models are flying good. Once these filters are dialed in, then you can start cranking up those gains to get ultimate performance. I did want to quickly go over the low pass filter again. Like I said, it is recommended to have it enabled first order and a cutoff frequency of 150. The notch filters, that was for that if you have noise not associated with the fundamental second, third, or fourth harmonics of any of the rotating parts of the helicopter. The dynamic filter, some guys have it on, some don't. I don't have dynamic filters on for any of my helicopters. Some people claim during auto rotations you may have unwanted flight characteristics during the auto rotation because you're going below this RPM for RPM filtering. So they may enable dynamic filters to get rid of bad auto rotation characteristics. I haven't noticed it myself. I don't do autos over and over, but I do them, if I do go flying, I am doing autos every once in a while. But if you do enable it, it's recommended to have a notch count of 2, and then I've read a notch Q between 8 and 10. And then the notch minimum frequency, you want this a little bit above the fundamental on your main rotor. And then it's recommended to have this on 240. But like I said, the dynamic filters may mask, or you may wind up double filtering. Since we have RPM filtering enabled and we customized it, I feel I don't need dynamic filters because you may accidentally double filter something we already did over here. And then, like I mentioned before, the more filtering you have, then you may have a sluggish responding helicopter. Anyways, thanks for watching my video. I sure do appreciate it, and thanks to all the Rotorflight developers. You guys are doing a great job kicking butt, and I'm looking forward to see what you guys have in store in the future. All right, take care. Over and out. Bye.